Welcome to the Wonder With Me podcast, where I, Dr. Tonia Winchester, invite you to get curious with me about all things mind-body healing, especially how we can unlock the incredible healing power of our unconscious minds, so that we can all get out of stress mode and go back into healing mode. We'll talk about how you can easily create healthy, sustainable self-care habits so that you can calm your mind, sleep deeply, wake rested, and enjoy happy, energized days. Ultimately, so that you can make a bigger difference in your well-being and that of your family and the world around you. These casual chats are for educational purposes only and don't constitute a therapeutic relationship. With all that said, let's get this episode underway. Come wonder with me. Hey, welcome back to another episode of the Wonder With Me podcast. I am your hostess, doctor and/or coach, Tonia Winchester. This is episode 32, how we can change our neurological strategies to change our behaviors and get better results. This is a follow-up episode to episode number 31. Yes, the one right before this, where I spoke in a really big picture way of our habits and behaviors and how we're driven on autopilot. And we do a lot, 95% of what we do is automatic, habitual, happening at the level of the unconscious mind. This episode, we're going to go microscopically, microcosmically into the nanosecond of neurology that happens before your behaviors. So we're going to take that really chunked up big picture. Your habits are automated, your behaviors are automated, and we're going to look at what actually happens that creates those automatic behaviors. So with all of that being said, let's get into it. Let's get wondering. As we discussed in the previous episode, we all have automatic behaviors that happen all the time without us thinking about it. And one might argue without our consent. And what I mean by that is not our conscious consent. Some of these behaviors are rather benign. We're automated when we see a red light to put our foot on the brake. Just like when we see a green light, that we're automated to put our foot on the gas. My husband has an automatic strategy where every time he walks by the fridge, he opens the fridge. And then inevitably he'll say, "Why did I open the fridge?" And in my head, I respond, "Because you're anchored to open the fridge every time you see it." Now for me, when I see the fridge, I have a different behavioral response. Our fridge is beside this length of floor that's perfect for practicing my salsa spins. So when I see the fridge, I will start doing my salsa turns. So same trigger, different behavioral response. And then some of these automatic behaviors are more problematic for us. They might manifest as reactivity, irritation, agitation towards other people, rudeness, shortness, curtness. They may be in the form of habits that aren't helpful for us in terms of our own physiology and even our relationships. Things like overeating, substance use or abuse, avoiding conflict, avoidance behaviors in general. Now, what's interesting with my clients is when I first meet with them, we spend quite a bit of time figuring out what we call strategies. And I said this word a few moments ago. A strategy is a neurological pattern that happens automatically in a nanosecond that drives a behavior unconsciously, if I hadn't mentioned. I'm making a presumption here that when my husband sees the fridge, that's the trigger, he has a thought, something like, I wonder what's in there. And then he has some sort of emotion, I don't know what that is, and then he opens the fridge. Then there's another trigger that happens. He sees the contents of the fridge, or maybe it's actually the feeling of him holding the handle of the fridge, which triggers another thought, why did I open the fridge? Some sort of emotion is going to be connected to that, I don't know what. And then he says out loud, why did I open the fridge? So this is a chained behavior. The first trigger is seeing the fridge. The behavior that it leads to is opening the fridge. The next trigger is either holding the handle of the fridge or seeing the contents of it. And then the behavior is saying out loud, why did I open the fridge? All of these things are happening in a nanosecond without his conscious attention. What's really interesting is a lot of these patterns are actually set up when we're really young, when we learn how to behave in the world to get things we need like love, care, and attention. And we learn to modify our behaviors so that we can get those things. And it's easier for the unconscious mind to automate those things so that it doesn't have to make a decision about them every time. And there's this really fascinating transformation that happens when we do mind-body healing work and clear the pain out of our past. And when I say clear, I mean we remove the emotional charge from our memories. The facts of the story remain the same, but our perception of the story changes. Our interpretation changes. The behaviors that resulted from those perceptions and interpretation changes. So we can recode our past experiences that caused us pain and change the automatic trigger behaviors that are present in our current lives. And this enables us to alter our behaviors and achieve new outcomes. And I've shared in past episodes about my personal weight release journey, and I'm going to use this as an example here. At age 35, I gained 35 pounds in 1 year, a tremendous amount of weight gain in 1 year's time. Now, despite my knowledge of how to release weight, it still lingered. And later, I understood its purpose. So once I had learned about the tools of neuro-linguistic programming, and I cleared my past, I understood the purpose of this weight gain and this inability to release weight. And it had to do with protection. At the time of the weight gain, I was in a really stressful situation involving human beings who were hurt and were hurting other people. And their behaviors activated within me what I now recognize is a trauma response. But the thing is, the only reason I was susceptible to that is because of traumas stemming from my past experiences. So these people acting in the way that they were acting was somehow reminding me of ways people who I knew from when I was young acted and behaved. And when I was young, facing those past scenarios, I learned how to manage those situations to keep myself safe. And that learning continued on into my adult life. And again, when I learned NLP and I went through a breakthrough process, which is the mind-body healing process I take my own clients through, and I cleared these old memories, changed how I interpreted these old stories, my behaviors changed. And the need for protection disappeared, and my body finally released weight that it had gained as sort of a defense mechanism. And here's the cool thing. When we change the past, we change what behavior happens automatically after a trigger. So let's look at the nanosecond. People, of course, are not aware of this. And until I start to ask very specific questions of my clients, they haven't really thought this through before. But there's some sort of behavior that they don't want, some sort of problem behavior. I've listed some of those already earlier in this episode. But there's something that they don't love about what they're doing that they want to change. Even if it's actually a feeling that they want to change, that feeling is always going to come with a behavior. So say someone says, I don't want to be anxious anymore. Well, then I might ask them, well, how do you behave when you're anxious? And they'll give me a list of the problem behaviors. It's like we're taking the film back a frame or flipping back a page of a book, and we find out the emotion that happens just before the behavior. So just before you do that, maybe with the anxiety, it is scrolling on Facebook. Maybe that's their problem behavior, scrolling on social media. So just before they do that behavior, what are they feeling on the inside? And they'll know. They might say anxiety again. They might say worry. They might say stress. They might say fear. They might say loneliness, any of those things. And then we flip the page back again. And just before you felt that, what did you see or hear or feel from the outside? And there'll be some sort of external trigger. So for my husband and the fridge, it's seeing the fridge. I'm very auditory. I have a lot of auditory triggers, which I'll get to in just a second. But it could be something like a touch, how someone touches you, or how something else touches you, or how, the texture of a certain fabric, or the temperature of a certain window. Any of these things could be triggers. Then, after the external experience, there's going to be some sort of experience that happens on the inside. It might be a picture, it might be a sound, it might be a tone of voice, it might be a thought, it might just be a word. So we go from external trigger to internal picture, let's just say, encompassing all of those options, to the feeling, to the behavior. This is what we call a strategy. Now, this all happens at lightning speed. Again, it's the nanosecond before our behavior. Like I say, as a very auditory person, if I hear a song, I'll know exactly where I was driving the last time I heard that song. And I'll remember what the weather was like that day and what color cars were around me. So the sound is enough for me to have all of those cues come back. And so when we really get to understand this moment in our psychology that changes our physiology, we use it as a bit of a testing ground. Because when we do the work of clearing our past, we decouple the trigger from the behavior. Going back to my personal example with my protective weight gain, cleared the pain of those traumas, both the more recent ones and the childhood ones that predisposed me to the more recent ones. Body starts to release weight. Yay. One of my triggers was this person's voice. Auditory. External on the outside. Inside, oh no. What's today going to be like? Do we have Jekyll? Do we have Hyde today? Who are we dealing with? What's it going to be like? Feeling fear, worry, scared. Behavior, avoid, shut down, stay quiet. And because I was shutting down my voice, which is in the neck, where the thyroid is from a mind-body perspective, I was shutting down my metabolism, which resulted in weight gain. After my clearing and healing, I was in a shop, a busy shop, and I heard a voice. And I thought, oh my gosh, is that the voice of that person? And I listened closer and I was assured that it was this voice. And I turned the corner and there the person was. And we made eye contact for a brief second and then passed each other without saying anything. Here's how I know that things were different. Because when I saw this person, when I heard this person's voice, I had zero stress chemicals going through my body. I didn't have the same thoughts of, oh my gosh, am I in danger today? Instead, I said, wow, they're not aging well. There were some visual signs of some deterioration, let's just say. I thought, wow, they're not aging well. Then my next thought was, I wish them all the best. And then I just moved on. The original trigger had a completely different behavioral response. And not just behaviorally, but emotionally, psychologically, all of the steps in the chain were different. And this is what I'm looking for when I work with people and we've done our transformation clearing work. I will retest and challenge them with their original trigger. Okay, imagine you see a man in a red hat. What's your instinct now? And they'll commonly just say, oh, I just pause and take a deep breath and go about my day. No longer does that visual trigger or that auditory trigger or kinesthetic trigger have the same anchoring effect, the same automated habitual behavior that used to happen before. This is what we're doing. We're decoupling the trigger from the behavior. So I'm wondering about you now. I'm wondering if any of what I've been saying is making sense for you, and I'm wondering if you can see or hear or feel yourself in any of the things I've been saying, where you're starting to maybe identify that there is something happening inside you that is causing you to behave in a specific way for a specific purpose. Maybe it's coming home to an empty house and reaching for the bottle of wine. Maybe it's hearing a specific tone of voice in your partner and storming out of the room. Maybe it's getting cut off in traffic and swearing at the air. Maybe it's turning on the TV at night and grabbing a bag of cheesies. What I'm hoping that you're starting to wonder about is where in your life these automated trigger to behavior patterns, these strategies, are not only playing out, because they're playing out all the time, I assure you that, but the places that they're playing out in a way that feels, as you think or feel into that, feel more destructive versus constructive. And I'm wondering if there's a part of you that's curious about how you can change those destructive behaviors and create constructive ones. And if that's something that you're interested in, that's exactly what I do with my clients, as I've been describing today. First, we elicit the strategies of the problem behaviors. Then we do a whole bunch of neurological reprogramming, clearing, transforming work that decouples the trigger from the behavior so that they can create new behaviors, ultimately, so they can create new results in their life and in their health. So if you're wondering about any of that, I invite you to hop over to toniawinchester.com. There you'll be able to find a copy of my book, Break Through the Insomnia Cycle. And even though it has insomnia in the name, it's actually this exact thing that we're talking about today. It's how to change our habits and behaviors and patterns so that we can calm our nervous system down. Often sleep is a result of that. Wake energized, wake primed to enjoy vitality and energy throughout the day. Also, if you have a specific question, feel free to drop it in our chat box, which is on that page, toniawinchester.com. We'll happily respond and let you know any personal resources that may be helpful for you. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for listening. And may you choose to make all of your dreams come true. Here's a little epilogue for this episode. I was just about to post this, and as I was writing the description of the episode, I realized that I didn't specify something about this topic. Something that's really important, actually. This idea of strategies going from trigger to behavior is what I was seeking when I was dissatisfied in my practice. And you may have heard this origin story of how I came from naturopathic medicine in practice as a naturopathic doctor, and then trained in the tools of neurolinguistic programming, NLP, and became a mind-body healing coach. I love being a naturopathic doctor. The philosophies of naturopathic medicine are exactly how I want to be and show up in the world, how I want to help people in the world. And what I came to realize is that even if a patient is super clear on what pain they want to move away from, what pleasure they want to move towards, aka their healing goal, they're so clear on those things, and we work together as a team to put an amazing plan together. Despite all of that, it is hard to change our habits. And these people would come back to me and they'd say, no, it's just hard to eat my broccoli. It's hard to get to bed on time. It's hard to drink enough water. It's hard to set a boundary in a relationship. It's hard to avoid the toxins that are hurting my body. It's hard. And this is when I became so obsessed with this moment in human psychology, because the act of those things is not the hard part. It's not hard to eat one's broccoli. As the metaphor here, there's no heavy lifting. You're not going to sweat. It's the most easy thing to digest for most people when it's cooked properly. It's not those things that are hard. It's the decision to do that every day, consistently, even when you're not getting an immediate benefit, because sometimes things take time. It is hard to commit to those things. And the reason it's hard is because of exactly what I talked about in this episode, these automatic strategies that are playing out that go from trigger to behavior without your conscious awareness and or consent. I just wanted to hop back on and share that connection of this topic from this episode to the reason why I got into mind-body healing and coaching in the first place, is because this is the moment that changes everything for us as human beings trying to just find some joy and peace and sanity in the world. When we change our strategies, the whole world opens up. We become more resourceful. We have more choice available to us in any given moment. How nice would it be to, when faced with a previously irritating trigger, that you just take a nice deep breath and bless that person or wish them well? How amazing would that be for your well-being in your day-to-day life? So, just a little addendum to what you've just heard. Thank you so much for listening again. Thank you again for being here. And one more time, may you choose to make all of your dreams come true. Hey, thanks for wondering with me today. If you've got something good out of this, then please forward this episode along to the people who you know could benefit. Be sure to subscribe, and if you're really keen, you leaving us a rating and review helps us to help more people, so thank you in advance for that. If you're wanting more insights about how you can leverage the power of your unconscious mind to go back into healing mode, head on over to toniawinchester.com, where you'll find my book, Breakthrough the Insomnia Cycle, and other helpful ideas. Thanks again, and we'll connect on the next episode of the Wonder With Me podcast. In the meantime, may you choose to make all of your dreams come true.